So today I have the honor to make the interview to Francisco. Francisco wants to start saying some words, so I'll let you.
Yo quería empezar antes de hablar en inglés.
Before I speak in English, I would like to talk in Spanish/Portuguese. And there is a fantastic team here that represents the internet that I want, with an open, plural discussion full with people. Thank you very much to the interpreters that are going to help me now, who is a very important work in the Parliament, European Parliament. All the interpreters at the end are the ones that allow for the European project to happen, because otherwise, with all the bubble in Europe, it would be impossible.
And that's about everything I can say in Spanish.
That's not true. That's not true. On y va?
On y va.
Allez hop. Good. So Francisco is the co-founder of DigiCon. We will speak about it in a little bit, but before we would like to send the questions to the audience. I don't know if it's...
Could you, Angel, just show the second one? So we're going to try. I'm not sure the connection will be enough, but we always try to do these little interactive experiences with the audience. And the question is basically, in English, who do you think that creates the rules that govern what we can say and do on the internet? Que en español será...
So who creates the rules for the internet regarding what we can say and what we can do on the internet?
Yeah, so we thought, when thinking about these questions, that this also could have been like the title of this intervention. Can you access it? Is it working? Yeah? Great.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we have been talking in all the, well, yesterday and this morning about a lot of different very interesting things, and within those topics we have been speaking about democracy, we have been speaking about governance, centralization, decentralization of the information, and at some points in my head was like, okay, but all these things, what are we trying to get free from, or trying to get away of, you know, to say it in some way. And I think that, and based on the work, of course, of Francisco, it was like he has worked a lot about new authorities and trying to understand who are the new authorities, and maybe we could understand that we are trying to get protected from these new authorities. So I would like you to explain us a little bit more about that.
Thanks a lot, Ines. So I think the idea of the authorities is a sort of good metaphor to explain what we do at DigiCon and what sort of digital tech lawyers do more broadly. I think originally, when we thought about all of these problems that we're speaking here, you know, like surveillance and freedom of expression and all that, historically we always thought of the state as being the enemy, you know, because traditionally that's how you think about the problem. And the problem is the abusive state is going to control what you say. It's going to control what you do. It's going to take care of your property. And, you know, with the rise of the internet in the 90s were really such a beautiful moment. Like, people started thinking, wow, finally, I can escape the big monster of the state and replace it by, you know, wonderful communities. And I think that sort of 90s vibe, 90s narrative, it's still here, right? Like when we speak about decentralization. What happened after, like 2005, 2006, 2007 onwards, was that the evil state was sort of replaced by a very selected number of companies that exercise a very similar power. So all the worries that we had against the state on freedom of expression, for example, are very similar to what we now discuss about, you know, Facebook or Twitter or Amazon if you go e-commerce. And so what we are trying to do at DigiCon is a bit, okay, so the problem is still the state in many states outside of Europe, but in Western Europe and in the Western hemisphere more general, the Western world, the problem is not only the state, but these other companies. And so as lawyers, we start understanding, okay, what can we do about it, basically?
And so, and these new companies are then these new authorities, no? To respond to, yeah.
Completely.
So that's the, okay.
Completely.
Okay, and how did they become the new authorities, and what are you doing in DigiCon to work on that, and what's the approach?
So DigiCon is a very simple blog. You're free to check it out after, and it's a group of 6 people.
It's not so simple. He says it's simple.
It's getting more and more complex.
It's false honesty.
It's full of color. We're very proud of the design, but basically the core of the project was we were 6 lawyers from different countries. So 2 Italians, 1 Brazilian, 1 Portuguese, me, and 1 Spaniard and a Turk from Istanbul. And all of us had this feeling that we were not in control in terms of the rules that govern the internet, right? And as lawyers, you're always like, oh, I can control if things go wrong in the state, with the administration, I go to court. We believe in that world, right? And then we saw, like, in the internet, that world simply was not there. The impact was the same, and so we said, okay, let's try to do something about it. Very, very simply, let's start asking individuals, academics, and people that actually work with technology to start working together, just discussing this. Because I think, like, if Inez and I would go out there in the city of Malaga, and we would start having like a speech, like trying to say something to the population. And then the police would come and would just grab us and like, you cannot talk. Everybody in this room would be like, oh my God, look at this. It's a grave breach of fundamental rights, right? But if Facebook excludes me from the platform, and in the early days didn't even really explain me why, everybody was like, well, I can always use Twitter, right? Which is the same, you could say the same, like, oh, in Malaga I cannot speak, I can always go to Paris or like to the south of France. And so why? This was, I think, the DigiCon's foundational question was, why do we accept that private American companies do this to us in the digital world, but you and me would never accept that the police in Malaga would not allow us to say what we want in Calle 12. Like, it didn't make sense. And for a lawyer, we were like, okay, we need to do something about this.
And how does it work? Can you explain a little bit who you are bringing together, how it works, the channels of interaction?
So if you go to the blog, there's a lot of legalese, because we are 6 lawyers, and it's very difficult. Like AI developers, lawyers are their own breed, and so you will find lots of sort of legal pieces trying to explain how digital technology is being regulated. But then we started inviting civil society to chip in the debate. And so we have 4 categories. One dedicated to the digital state, and that's where sort of all the questions that we've been discussing here on, the use of AI by public administration, for example. And so we try to understand, okay, when the administration uses the AI, what are the limitations, right? And then we have platform governance, which I think is the most, like for the moment being the sort of more famous part of the blog, just because, Facebook and all the scandals and everything. So yeah, we have lots of pieces there. Then we have one strong part on digital rights, because that was sort of the core idea. And then we have a very cool section in the end of it, which is normally people's favorite section, which is always curated by Elise Doka, our good friend at DigiCon, which is a sci-fi section. And it's very geeky. I think in this audience it would work. In other audiences it has not worked as well. And so we ask sci-fi artists. So from everywhere, really. Like, we have poets, we have plastic artists, we have people who write essays. And the idea is to try to understand a bit how science fiction can influence the law. And this seems to like a far-fetched idea, but Asimov, for example, and here in this audience, I don't need to explain who Asimov is, which is great. His theories and books really influenced what politicians are saying at the European Commission today. And so we started to say, like, come speak to us, because lawyers are like in their little world. Come speak to us, explain your ideas, show your art, and hopefully someone from the European Commission or from other places will listen, will look at your art and be inspired to make better regulation, I think. Yeah.
You really like this section.
I do. I'm a big fan.
You were supposed to talk about it at the end.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. You're right. I'll come back to it. There's a lot more.
I know. No, yeah. But it's it's very interesting. But I would really like to know more. I think it's very interesting to know how you bring together these two words, no? Because you speak about, well, there are lawyers at some point, technologians at another point, and these two are very separated words that speak other languages. And how does it match? How does it work?
I mean, initially the reaction is like 95% of the times we try to get lawyers with technological people together, the first reaction is not good. And it's pretty simple why it's difficult, because the legal people, the lawyers, they speak their own language. You know, it's like a computing language is the same. So if you do not understand legalese, even though we are using the term sort of language, you know, Spanish or Portuguese or English or whatever it is, the terms mean different things, and so it's exceptionally difficult to enter that world. And it's very similar with the tech people, right? So the tech people, especially developers, they are very focused on their own languages, on building their own communities, and they have this sort of misconception, I think, towards lawyers that, you know, lawyers are boring people that write laws that are just taking our freedom away. And so the first experiments we did trying to get people together, both at the DigiCon and at the European Institute where I work, were complicated. But I think more and more you see multidisciplinary projects that, like, for example, at the UI, we now have this series of talks, a research cluster that invites people from hardcore sciences. So we have people that do things that no lawyer would, you know, even remotely think about. They come, they explain us, we are all just looking at them like, oh my God, this is magic, we don't understand anything. But little by little, we're establishing dialogues and bridges between both, because to do tech regulation without knowing the technology or knowing the people you affected, it's just absurd. It's just absurd. And so DigiCon is trying to be like the place where people gather.
Okay. And is the school, because you also have this school, I think that this is also one of the tools that you use to bring these profiles together, no? Can you...
Absolutely. Yeah, so every year there is a school in beautiful Florence, Italy. And so the school is on digital constitution, the algorithmic society, a bit more broader. And it's a good way to interact with lawyers who work on tech regulation, like some of our friends at DigiCon, but also with AI people. And especially, for example, in Italy, in Bologna, there's really good work being done on the intersection between, for example, using AI systems, mostly natural process language systems, to find abusive clauses in contracts. So there is a really interesting project in Bologna at the UI called Claudette, which is a machine learning system which is fed with abusive clauses, and then you can insert terms and conditions, and you'll be like, oops, look at this. Like, this is definitely abusive according to your legislation. So definitely the bridges are sort of slowly being established, but I think there's a lot of work we need to do in breaking the stereotype that lawyers don't care about tech, that lawyers don't understand tech, that lawyers are boring and only serve to make laws that do not apply. I think if we continue with that, especially at the rhythm that technology is evolving, I mean, it's going to be the end of it, you know, because everything is getting more polarized. Like, and with decentralization now, you see that you know, decentralization people don't want to hear about lawyers. They don't want to hear about lawyers. They only hire them when things go wrong, you know. And so we're trying to bridge a bit the gaps.
Nice. And okay, so sorry, I got lost.
Sorry, no.
No, but so it's. So we are bringing these two words together. You are working now for 1 year, more or less, no? That it's quite
very recently,
going, yeah. And which are the results? Because you told me yesterday that you are kind of surprised in a good way about where the things people are contacting you from, and no, can you? Because it's very nice to see such a difficult, putting contact together, getting so great results. So I think it's...
I mean, this conference, when we got the email from Yolanda, literally our reaction was like, are you sure that you want us? Because it's a one-year project, there's a bunch of researchers that are trying to do something, and we are so sort of young in the ecosystem that we were so happy, like generally very surprised and happy. And the success, I think, has been in the legal community. More and more we're getting to the people, which is great. So it means that people needed a space to speak. And in the legal academic world, you have these big journals that you can publish, but people needed a sort of more informal space to meet. So I think that worked very well. And then the sci-fi part with the work that Yelis is doing, and it's just insane. We are really getting to artists that we would never even dream of getting. The last thing we got, and it was her work again, was Bruce Pennington. Some of the geeky people here would remember him from like the covers of Dune and other really big sci-fi books from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And we just dropped them a cold email, like say, Bruce, we really love your work. We have this small blog going. Would you like to make a little piece? And he sent us all the covers, and a huge text describing, his life, how we got into science fiction. And there was a sort of normative moral idea behind it that, he wants sci-fi to have a place in the regulatory environment that is happening right now. And so I think these are two good examples of we are reaching to audiences way beyond the classic academic from law. And that's the objective. We're creating a little network, like a little map, that anybody can just drop us an email and be a point, a little dot in the map. And the idea is like, if a regulator in the future needs to hear more about interoperability, there is a dot like Irina is the expert. And they will go like, okay, at least I want to talk to Irina before I pass legislation, right? Or something I could say with Carla and AI, right? Like, let me see at least what Carla has to say about this. So that's what we're trying to do. But again, very modest project, 1 year old.
But it's it's impressive. And within the art section, going a little bit more in the art section, there are different categories there. Now it's the time for you to speak a little bit more about it.
So I'm always speaking about Yelis. The other members are very important. Let me just name them as well. It's Francesca Palmiotto and Giovanni De Gregori from Italy. We have Marco Almada from Brazil. And we have Natalia Menendez from Spain. And then it's me and Yelis. So we do more or less the sci-fi part. And so we want it to be as broad as possible in artistic terms. And so we have a lot of digital art, not necessarily Web 3.0 art. So we are not into the crazy NFT mania that is going around yet. So we have lots of sort of Web 2.0 classic or Web 1.0 classic art. Then we have essays, and the essays are really interesting. Just people that, lawyers and non-lawyers that think about how technology could influence society, and so it's very forward-thinking, very sci-fi-ish. Then we have poetry, and let me use this to appeal the poets out there, because right now our poetry section has 2 poems written by me, and it's really sad. It's very sad because we say we have a poetry section, and that maybe we can use bananas, we can use actually you to get it, but it feels like the poetry sci-fi artists are not there. And so I've written 2 poems there, and it's a very lonely section. Then we have recommendations, and that's really cool. You can just go there and be like, the top 10 books of sci-fi that inspired my life, the 10 movies. So you see, we're going past the law, but always thinking that the regulators, a person from the European Commission that is thinking about the DSA or the DMA can go there and be like, let me just read one of these books before I finish the draft European Commission proposal. I'm looking at Eve, maybe this is very utopic, but we're just trying our best to do that, like to influence a bit people that otherwise would not have access to sci-fi artists and sci-fi, and give a voice to those artists. That's what we're trying to do. Yeah,
I think it's super interesting how to use art now in this it's kind of 3 worlds that at the end you are combining there, no? Between low technological profiles and then it's like art, and it's super original, and as you said and told me, it's a nice way also to build this bridge and to it's speaking another language, no? To bring these words together and also make that other people can feel comfortable in this world, no? And make understand some things from other language. So it's super nice.
And I think originally sci-fi artists, you know, either being writers or painters or poets, there was a sort of an activist dimension to it. They wanted to imagine society. And when you read Asimov, for example, most of the works are about things are going to go wrong, and before they go wrong, here are some ideas how we can fix it. And so there was this idea of thinking the future in a critical way, and you know, there's lots of things that they were just completely wrong, right? Like the idea of the 2000s as being flying cars and stuff like that. But a lot of things they got right, and the problems we're facing right now were predicted. And so we just need to get all of that knowledge from the 60s, 70s, and 80s and bring them to the regulators today. And so far, I think it's working.
Good. Let's check. Yeah. Wait, yeah.
Okay.
Would you like to finish by sharing one of the two poems
Okay.
If you want.
It's very sad.
Final touch.
You will hear 50% of all poetry section at the UI. All right. Let me just, if the internet works, I will get it up. I'll just read the shortest. Not that it's like, you know, as I say, it's two poems, but I will read. So, and then we have actually an AI reading this poem. We can then talk about that. We did a little experiment with text to audio, and so I put my own poem being read by an AI using a third-party software, and it was very spooky.
Is it?
Very, very spooky. So the poem is called "Am I Not Human After All?" And it goes something like this. Am I not human, after all, if I think, love, dream, but do not die? How human am I, if I hurt, suffer, fall, and cry? Do I need to find a way to defy life and forcefully die, to be as human as your mind? I am not AI. I am I. I. And if necessary to live, I shall die. That's...
Thank you.
So as you see, the level is very low, so we really welcome everyone to step in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to say anything or if we open the...
One last thing about, I think, the latest technology we're trying to use to bridge the gap. A big professor of law at the UI, who's a good friend of the DigiCon and someone that has really helped us from the beginning, called Nicolas Petit. He has written a paper called Asimov for Lawyers. And anyone can read it. Non-lawyers can read it as well. So it's not legalese. And what he did was, along with the co-author, Jerome, they read the books, you know, they are geeks in essence. And they said, wow, what can we derive from these books that can influence regulation? And so at DigiCon we decided, why don't we take this a step above? And we create a metaverse gallery. So we basically created, we're using a very common, very known metaverse, if you want to call it, called Spatial. And inside that digital gallery, we have created sections with Asimov work connected to Nicolas and Jerome's paper. So on the 22nd of November, Nicolas and Jerome will be inside the metaverse, I think for the first time, I hope, showing, presenting a paper on law and tech with avatars of their own, going through the gallery and discussing like Asimov, the law, sci-fi. So you're all welcome to join on the 20th. Then I will send all the details, but the 22nd of November, we will meet in the metaverse to discuss law, tech, and regulation.
Okay. Great.
Okay, I'm ready for questions.
Thank you. Yeah. Any question? Jan is the questioner today.
Bueno, yo soy un frecuente ya.
I'm a regular here in questions. I'm a great lover of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I believe that this is one of the works that have manifested a lot of that have inspired Elon Musk, among others. So we have a lawyer and a philosopher. Anthropologist, okay, anthropologist, but becoming philosopher, you know? So here goes. She's also a doctor. Okay, fantastic. Doctor. So sci-fi thoughts, if we translate that to the regulation realm, it entails certain risks. So to what extent, well, or where rather do you see the limit of advocating for transferring these visionary views that can exert an influence on Elon Musk? And like, for example, how do you prevent this from happening? I love Mars, but I don't care about the Earth.
To maintain, so I don't disturb the interpreters or insult the Spanish language. I think that when you look at the sci-fi works, most of the sci-fi works were warnings about what the future could be, right? And even the famous Asimov laws, you know, that everybody repeats, you know, to the exhaustion, including in the European Commission, you know, right? If we install these protections, AI will finally be controlled and stuff like that. And when you read the books, it was always about actually the failure of those laws. So those laws actually do not prevent systems from failing. And so when regulators, you know, mainly lawyers and politicians, cherry pick parts of the sci-fi world and directly apply it to law, including, for example, AI regulation, the danger is enormous, you know, because they are just choosing parts of it. They are not understanding the ecosystem. They're choosing cherry picking parts of it. And so I think what DigiCon tries to do is to like take a step back and be like, let's discuss a bit more before we are jumping into, you know, interpreting Asimov in the light of AI regulation. Like, let's take a step back and think, can this be dangerous? And we spend the last, I think, day and a half seeing how AI does wonderful things, like what Francisco has just shown us, and can do terrible, terrible, terrible things. And so DigiCon is a bit neutral in that we just want people to discuss before they act. I think that's, in the end, what we try to do.
Thank you. The question's coming, but the 3 quick comments. As a techie married to a lawyer, I really hope that bridges are possible. Second comment, you have a master of social. That is, according to current opinion about correct language, inadequate. Call her head of social. Master means there's a slave.
Yeah, slave.
Not only lawyers have language questions. The third comment is a bit more complicated. The US judges have had economics courses because they judge on economic questions. The problem that has given is that the economics have been given by the conservative Chicago school. So the US judges have become more right-wing in their judgments. Okay, now the question. Legislation is done mostly by lawyers. So what are your plans to bringing DigiCon to the legislators?
So really, really interesting comments, I think, on, for example, the influence of other sides. So we were speaking in this morning about how, you know, a prime minister, Liliana was like, a prime minister cannot know about everything, or a politician cannot know about everything. And certainly a judge cannot know about everything, right? It's just insane to think that a judge can know from economics to how an AI system works, and at the same time, like, and people are not trained for that. And so I think that first, just to answer your comment, I think we need to also make sure that the people who apply the law, not only the people who create the law, so not only European Commission, countries, etc., but people who apply the law have a basic knowledge what they are judging on, okay? Because if you don't have that sort of, you know, guidance by people from the tech sectors, lawyers will always revert to their classic thinking, and their classic thinking is law books. And some things apply very well, some things don't apply at all. And so that's my first comment. Two, the question, are we bringing DigiCon to the Commission? Are we bringing DigiCon to EVE? I think at this stage, we want to keep it a bit more open. We have no ambition of influencing. We want people to talk. So we want people like Fabrizio, for example, to come and discuss with us. We want DGs to look at DigiCon and even criticize some pieces by academics, for example. I can imagine a Director General thinking, I really disagree with what this lawyer is saying about the Digital Services Act. Here's my piece on it. And for the rest of us, it becomes like open, no? It becomes transparent what the Commission thinks, and so that's the ambition. More of an open dialogue, more web of the 90s, and less centralization of the Web 2.0 of the 2000s.
You said it. Yeah, but it's at the end it's opening. It's very nice because it's kind of opening a space for dialogue, no? Which makes that we can at some point take conscious of some things some questions that we are never making to ourselves, maybe. So it's also a little bit what we tried, but what you tried, sorry, with the first question, no? Like trying to just. If we ask that, yeah, sorry, I cannot speak. Okay.
La presión
a little bit. But yeah, so thank you we don't have time more? Just 15, okay.
I don't think we can show Angel, right? Like we could.
I think we can still have one question.
But I'm going to check the results because I'm really.
Huh?
No, just I'm going to check it when I'm there, Jorge.
Okay.
Just thanking everyone now. Just thanking everyone for.
Okay. What?
Pero está ahí? No, I don't think it is.
No.
No, don't worry. I'll check on my phone after. No te preocupes.
Because we wanted to see
I just wanted to see the results of the survey, but I will see it on the phone once I'm back.
Because the idea was to see it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Muchas gracias por todo.
Hola, sí. Como marionetas que ignoran quiénes manejan las cuerdas. Marionetas obligadas a desenredar esos hilos que no comprenden. Necesitamos fantasías, superheroínas, versos que muestren su arte y rompan los hilos todos. Enseñarán al poder a mirar distinto.